Good afternoon, colleagues from wherever you are viewing the proceedings of this presentation from. Like Dr. Rukia said, my name is Alice Mui, and I'm going to take you through the quality and safety requirements for blood and blood components. And this is towards the safety of the donor. So we begin by asking ourselves what quality is, and it's simply put the degree of excellence of something or fitness for purpose or conformance to customer expectations. And when we speak of conformance to customer expectations in view of our various components, we ask ourselves whether that component that is going to be transfused to a donor is going to enable that donor achieve the therapeutic need that it is intended to. Again, we also define quality as the totality of features and characteristics of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy stated or implied needs. That is the ISO definition. The goal of safety, the goal of quality is to ensure safety to the recipient of the donated blood and blood components. Our focus, or the key areas of focus as far as the various components are concerned, is going to be on collection of that blood that is used to prepare the various components, the packaging of the donated blood, the transportation, and the storage requirements. We'll also look at the quality control checks for the various blood components that should be made so as to achieve the therapeutic need or dosage of the particular component. And our components of interest, or the components that we are going to discuss today, will be whole blood, the packed red cells, platelets, fresh frozen plasma, and cryoprecipitate. We start by looking at the quality assurance or quality control checks that should be put in place when you are collecting blood. And we start by highlighting that the blood should be collected in a sterile, pyrogen-free bag. That is a closed system. Therefore, we are advised not to open the bag when the collection is being done, and to ensure that we do not introduce any bacterial pathogens that are likely to, again, bring some infections to the donors. The bag should be of single use, therefore we cannot use that bag. Importantly, the volume of the blood collected shall be appropriate to the volume of the anticoagulant. Why is this important? Because the volume of the anticoagulant, or we know the purpose of the anticoagulant is to sustain the various blood components. Those are the red cells, actually particularly the red cells, because they'll need glucose, they'll need all the other components of the additive of the anticoagulant to enable them to remain viable for at least 30 days, or just to survive in that bag as they would if they were in human body. So if we collect a volume that is higher than what the manufacturer has recommended, that therefore means that the cells are going to exhaust the nutrients in that anticoagulant, and most of them are likely to begin to hemolyze before they reach their shelf life of 30, 45 days based on the type of bag that is used. Again, if you collect a lower volume than what the manufacturer has recommended, again, we may have a higher concentration of the anticoagulant to the volume of blood cells collected, and that again might result to toxicity when it is transfused to the recipient. When you are collecting the blood, the maximum collection time for the whole blood again is based on the intended component, and the labile component should actually preserved if we collect that blood in a time not exceeding 12 minutes. That is for the platelets, because longer than that, those plates are likely to start clumping together. And again, when we try to prepare extract those platelets, will get a very low yield. Same applies to the collection that is intended for use to prepare the fresh frozen plasma and the cryoprecipitate, so that we do not risk losing our labile components such as the factor VIII and the fibrinogen. After collection, it is a requirement that we again store that blood under conditions that are appropriate for the intended components, like we are going to see in the subsequent presentations. After collection, how should these units be transported to ensure that once we prepare the components, we are able to achieve the yield that we wish to achieve? First and foremost, you are supposed to transport this blood in appropriate cool boxes. And this means, therefore, that we cannot use glove, or we cannot use cartons that have previously been used to put milk or other commodities. And the reason why we do this is to ensure that if there's a need to ensure that these are transported in a temperature controlled conditions, then such cool boxes are able to maintain those temperatures, because they are validated, and the material that they are made from ensures that we do not lose the temperatures, or we do not have hot air flowing into the boxes. So the transportation conditions, like I said, intended for platelet preparation should be at +20 to +24 degrees centigrade, and this should be done within 6 hours of collection, again, so that we avoid loss of the platelets. For the donations intended for processing of components other than platelets, that is the FFP and the cryoprecipitate, those and even red cells, we should be transported at +2 to +10 degrees, again, within the acceptable timeline of 6 to 8 hours from the time of collection. When these blood units, that is in the form of whole blood, arrive at the processing facility, how then should they be stored prior to preparation of the components? Just in that, like I said in the previous slide, if we intend to prepare platelets, then those units should be stored. Or rather, if we intend to prepare other components apart from platelets, then such units should be stored at +2 to +6 degrees in a blood bag refrigerator, as opposed to storing in a domestic fridge. If we need to prepare platelets, then that blood should be stored at +20 to 24 within 6 hours of, or rather from the time of collection. This means that for platelets, we need to have a climate-controlled environment. We know we have areas where the ambient temperature goes up to 30 or even 32. Therefore, if we have this in a room that has air condition and the temperature set to between these +20 to 24, then we'll be able to preserve our platelets. When we are storing, whenever our components are stored, such equipment should have their temperatures continuously monitored, and this should be at least 3 times and should be done at regular intervals over 24 hours. So if we are to do 24 hours, it means that every 8 hours, we need to check how our temperatures are. And if there is need for us to take an appropriate action to the temperatures found to be outside the acceptable range, then such action should be taken appropriately. If we are using storage that utilizes liquid oxygen, then such levels should always be monitored, or even the levels of the temperatures in areas that are utilizing liquid nitrogen. We should always ensure that we monitor and records are maintained at any given time. We will need to know what contents are contained in a particular bag, and therefore labeling is of importance. And all the labels, all the components should be accurately labeled. There's a list of information that should always be contained in every label, including the donor identification, date of collection, component type, actually date and time of collection, the expiry date, and any additives, the volumes, and if the test that particular component has undergone and their test results. That is for the useful components. For those that are not useful, then the labeling will take a different a line. Should we need to fix additional labels, then such labels shall not cover the primary donor identification and any other critical information. Sometimes we may have to transform components, say the platelets and transform FFP to a cryo, and that will require you to develop another label. So when you are placing the label for the cryo, we should always ensure that we do not cover the critical information that was previously contained during the primary unit collection. How do we package the processed components? First and foremost, we are required to use validated containers, and these are cool boxes that are made from insulated materials to ensure that we do not lose that we don't have issues of hot air coming in and therefore having to cause our ice packs down. And when we are packaging red cell components, those ones should be placed at the bottom of the cool box, and then we place a barrier in between the rod cells to ensure that once the ice packs are placed on top, there is no issue of hemolysis or cooling the red cells to below the 2 degrees centigrade. And then thereafter, we ensure that our bag the cool box is tightly sealed, and all the requisite documentation accompanying those red cells clearly placed. For FFPs, since they need to be transported in a frozen state, it is always advisable that you have the ice packs at the bottom, you have FFPs on top of the ice pack, on the first layer of the ice packs, and then you have another layer of FFPs. While doing all these, because we know these FFPs are stored frozen, and the pilot tube that is left attached sometimes, actually, most of the time it tends to harden. So if it's hit by another hard object, it's likely to break. So as we package, we ensure that we protected our FFPs either by putting them inside a Ziploc bag to ensure that the collision in the ice packs does not result to their breakage. When we are transporting platelets, again, the temperature should always be maintained at +20 to 24, meaning that we again are required to use validated transportation boxes. And we do know that if platelets are exposed to cold temperatures, they are likely to clump together, and therefore they not be of any help to the patients. Therefore, temperature during transportation is very, very, very key. Again, like I said, all this should be accompanied by the requisite documentation. When we are storing platelets, these should be under constant agitation, again, to prevent the platelets from clumping. And this is normally done by use of either a platelet agitator or a rotor, where you are able to control the number of strokes per minute, just to ensure that you preserve the viability of such platelets. All that said and done, we need now to look at how to ensure that the various components that we prepared and that you are issuing for use by the patient meet the patient's therapeutic need. And I'll start by discussing the whole blood, which does not require any preparation. When it comes to storage, we are required to store the whole blood at +2 to +6 degrees, while transportation requires that we maintain temperatures at +2 to +10 degrees. The whole blood expires after 35 days since the day one of collection if we've used the anticoagulant CPDA1. In the event that we've used SCDA, we will have to keep this blood for 21 days unless otherwise stated by the manufacturer recommendation. Once we prepared our whole blood, or once we have had our whole blood ready for issue, we need to do our quality control checks, and we are required to test at least 1% of the whole blood units that are available within a month. Say, for instance, if within a month we've collected 400, so we need to subject 4% of the 400 units to quality control checks. And in the event that our 1% is less than 4 units per month, then you are advised to do QC checks for 4 units per month on the minimum. And what do we look for when we are doing our QC checks? We'll first of all look at the volume, which should be 450 ml plus or minus 10%. The HB should be greater than 45 grams per unit. Hemolysis should be less than 0.8% of the red cell mass. And this should be done at the end of the storage period. Maybe if it's a day before the expiry, we are required to set aside 4 units, or we even do the segments that will be used for the QC checks, as long as we've mixed the unit to ensure homogeneity and therefore not run the risk of only having the plasma is exposed to having both the plasma and the FFPs, rather, and the red cells, sorry for that. We do prepare, or at times will be required to avail red blood cells, and these are red blood cells that do not have any adsive solution added in them. These are prepared from whole blood that has been collected either in a double or multiple bag system. And the red cells should be separated from plasma within 6 to 18 hours of collection. And this is when we don't intend to prepare either platelets or FFPs. Storage is still the same as that of the whole blood. And again, even the expiry date remains the same, unless if for any instance you've opened the system, you've had to cut open the pilot tubing, then such blood should be used within 24 hours after separation. The QC specifications, again, still we are required to test 1% of the entire collection within that particular month, or 4%. And again, you can also do it on weekly basis, especially if the collection is higher, as opposed to having to keep the units for an entire, you can do it in a staggered manner. Those that are collected on first, probably they will do QC on the 29th, those ones of second, all the way. So just to ensure that the 1% is covered. And those are the volumes that we are expected to have at the end of the storage period of 280 plus or minus 50 ml. Hematocrit should be 65 to 75%. And again, the HB just for the whole blood remains at greater than 45 grams per unit. Hemolysis again should be at less than 0.8%. Again, at the end of the storage. So meaning we can only check for hemolysis at maybe a day or two prior to our lapse of the 35 days. We have red cells again that are prepared with you remove the plasma, and then you add you introduce some additive solution, and again, these are also supposed to be prepared within 72 hours of collection, and again, not more than 5 days from the time of collection. The storage temperatures and as well as transportation temperatures remain the same as those of the whole blood. And here the expiry date is likely to vary based on the additive used and dependent on the manufacturer recommendation. There are those that will go for 38 days. There are those that will go for 42 to 45 days. Again, the instructions given by the manufacturer will guide us in indicating the expiry date. The QC requirements again remain the same as those of the red cells without additive solution. When it comes to red cell concentrates with that are leukocyte reduced, these ones are required to be prepared within 5 days of collection, and it's advisable to use a leukocyte filter that can help us achieve the levels of less than 1.2 times 10 raised to power 6 per unit of the leukocytes. Storage temperatures remain the same, and again, expiry date is 35 after collection. Again, use within 24 hours after separation should you have opened the system. The hematocrit for the leuko-reduced red cells should be between 50 and 70%, and the HB should be greater than 40 grams per unit. Hemolysis remains at less than 0.8%, and the leukocytes should be less than 1 times 10 raised to the power 6 per unit. We are also required to ensure that the platelet donations that are transfused to the patients give them the maximum benefit. And we have 2 types of platelets: the single donor platelets, those that are collected from through separation from whole blood, and this is done by centrifugation at again 20 to 24 degrees centigrade, and those platelets are then separated in at least 40 mLs of plasma. Storage is again at between 20 to 24 degrees with continuous agitation, that is on either the platelet agitator that has an incubator or on a rotor that is placed in a climate or where there is an air condition, again to ensure that the temperatures are maintained within the acceptable ranges. The platelets, because of their nature of storage that is at room temperature, expire within 3 to 5 days after collection if we've used a closed system. And should you use open system at any time, then such platelets should be used within 6 hours. When you do QC, again, you're required to test 1% of the platelets that have been prepared, or a minimum of 4 units per month. The volume should be greater than 40 ml at the end of the expiry date, and the leukocytes should be less than 5 times 10 to the power of 6 per unit. When you do the platelet count, it should be greater than 5.5 times 10 to the power of 10 per unit, and the pH at expiry should be greater than 6. We'll collect platelets through apheresis, and then such should be stored again at the same temperatures as the single donation platelets, and they should be used within 3 to 5 days after collection. Hardly are we expected to open the system because this is derived from from the donor right to the bag, and there are no issues of further separation. The QC requirements for these are a bit different, and the volume here is when you do the QC, you're expected to at least have 200 to 300 mLs, and that's the count for the leukocytes, and the platelet count should be greater than 200. The pH at expiry should be 6.4 to 7.4. You notice that is a bit of an alkaline as opposed to the single donation platelets. We also have the fresh frozen plasma, and this is separated from whole blood within 6 hours of collection, and immediately after separation, it ought to be frozen to below -30 degrees within an hour of separation. And the storage requirements are should be below -18 degrees. And if you need to thaw them after thawing, then they should be kept at the ambient temperature. And again, here, ambient temperature would need to be qualified because we know there are areas where their ambient temperature is way too high. So again, as we place them, we should ensure that the temperatures are not above 37 or even the 32 degrees where possible. When we are transporting the fresh frozen plasma, this should be done in a frozen state, and we store them at, or rather if they are thawed, then they should be transported at between 1 and 10 degrees. How long do they last? If we store them at 18 degrees and below, then we can have this fresh frozen plasma for 12 months. And if we store them at temperatures at below 25 degrees, then we can have them for 24 months. That is if we have such freezers that are able to store, to cool below the negative 25. And once we've thawed the FAP, then we are required to transfuse them within 6 hours. The quality control requirements for FAP is volume, which should be plus or minus 10% of the stated volume that appears on the label. And then our factor 8 concentrate should be greater than 0.7 international units per milliliter. Finally, we have the cryoprecipitate. Again, this is prepared from the fresh frozen plasma that is thawed, and to obtain the precipitate. And this again should be stored at minus 18 degrees, again for a duration of 12 months. And should we store them at temperatures below negative 25 degrees, then you can have them for a period of 2 years. Yes, and the lower the storage temperatures, the longer we are able to store them. And these are required to be maintained in frozen state and can be transported at negative, at +1 to +10 once they are thawed, and should be used again within 6 hours. Expiry time again remains the same as for the FFPs. And when it comes to QC specifications, the fibrinogen should be greater than 150 milligrams per unit, while the factor 8 should be greater than 80 international units. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Alice, for taking us through the quality management systems. Hemovigilance depends highly on this. As we know, any compromise in the quality systems chain leads to unsafe blood for transfusion. Before I give it to Irene, I'd like to request, if you have any questions, kindly wait until plenary, or you can, alternatively, you can type it at the Q&A box. Irene, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rukia. Mine is just to say thank you to Alice for the presentation. And because I'm among the panelists, we are ready to take over the questions. I can see there is only one question that has already come here. I can't see clearly. Yeah, I'm just waiting for questions. You can have your questions. I'm ready. Dr. Rukia?
Yes, Irene, I've actually seen a question in the Q&A box. Someone who's asked, how many units of fresh blood make 1 unit of platelet?
Okay. The units of fresh blood that make 1 unit of platelet, as Alice has just presented, is that when we are handling single donations, we will need 6 units of fresh blood. But when we are handling apheresis, we'll just need only 1 donor. That 1 donor will give us 200 mLs. But when we are handling single donations, we'll need 6 units. Those are 6 donors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Irene. I believe that one is answered. I can see Dr. Aisha Ndungu, you've raised your hand. I have unmuted you. Dr. Aisha? Okay. Okay, so I can see another question in the meantime. How fast are products prepared in case of an emergency? Say one needs FFP. That's a question by Dorothy.
Okay, we normally prepare FFPs within 6 hours of collection, because if we do prepare if the 6 hours have not elapsed, we will end up having FFPs that are not stable, that the color might even change to be reddish. So within 6 hours, we are ready to prepare our FFPs in our labs and ensure that screening is done immediately.
Okay, I think, Dorothy, we've answered your question. Mr. Alex Mutai, you're also among the panelists. Can jump in.
Yes, Rukia, I'm listening by the side. I'm listening. I'll give input as we continue. Irene is completely in order in what she's saying, and I'm in concurrence of what she's presenting. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Dr. Rukia.
Yes, Alice.
Just an addition to the question on how soon the components can be prepared, and particularly the FFP. I just need to point out that FFP is one of the components that we can say that we are lucky that can be stored for longer, and therefore you can prepare as many as you can. Should there be an emergency, say for the rare blood group, should there be an emergency, you can easily request, and that is available within no time. It really does not require to be prepared when a patient is waiting, unlike the platelets that you require the donor being sought, the various tests being done to ensure that the donor qualifies to donate those platelets. So FFP is one of our security commodities or security components that we can really pride ourselves as having adequately available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alice. There's another question by Shah. What do you do with expired blood? Irene, you can take that one.
Yeah, we do not like handling expired blood, and we do not like having expired blood in our system, because internally as KTTA, we have internal systems that allows us to release blood to the hospitals before they expire. So hardly do we have expiries, but just in case we have an expired blood, we have a form that we document the blood has expired, and it is put into the bin liner, and it is incinerated. So we do discard expired blood. We do not use it in circulation because of the dangers of transfusing expired blood. Thank you.
Dr. Rukia.
Yes, Alex, go ahead.
I think expired blood, just like Irina said, we should not be having any expired blood in the system because one of the scarcity of the product. Nonetheless, if it occurs within the system, each institution should put in place a procedure of how to handle the disposal. Long time ago, we used to see guys draining the blood in the sinks and the rest of the things. I think this should be a thing of the past. There are disposal mechanisms for any biological material, and this should be taken into consideration wherever anyone has an expired unit within their system. I think that would be very good in that all of us will be having a standard way of doing the procedure. And I guess that the KTTA should be able to provide the operative procedures for this, which normally even within the AFSBT standards and the ISBT standards are already prescribed in them. Thank you very much. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. Alice, do you have something to add on that?
Well said, thank you. I don't have any addition.
Okay. There's another concern here by Philip. There's a friend of mine who wants to join this webinar. What's the process of joining? I think Nelson can comment on that. Let's continue with what's the preferable temperatures needed during the transfusion process? I'm saying this because you find blood clotting in the process. Is it a question of handling? Okay, Irene?
You've said the temperatures needed for transfusion. That is when we are transfusing to the patient, should be the room temperature. But in the lab, when we are doing preparation in our laboratories, then we handle the blood as per the required temperatures. If we are handling platelets, then we handle it at 20 to 24 and also storage at 20 to 24. But if it is transfusion, the patients are at room temperature wherever they are. Yeah, I think that's the much I can say.
I think his concern is that you find blood clotting in the process of transfusion. Alice, can you comment on, or Alex, on what could be the cause of this?
One thing that we encourage in any QMS system is when you have blood clotting during transfusion, it can be so because of various reasons. One, you could do a why check. Why is it? Like, is it the process? Is it the person? Is it the time that the blood unit was standing? Is it the unit that maybe was having an issue? You know, is it the blood bag? So I think, again, I will repeat and reiterate this, that the QMS system is there to ensure that the quality of the product that we are having is good and it meets the criteria that has been prescribed. Blood should not clot during transfusion. That's a standard. And therefore, anything that comes in between, we should find a cause on the reasons why and try to look at how we can mitigate it. Is it through the KTTA system or is it within the facilities that are doing this? I think with that, I think I'll just request that in any time that you have any blood clotting, it signifies on so many things through the transfusion chain. Over to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Alex. Let's move on to the next question. What reports have been received regarding PPB, regarding transfusion reactions? What are mostly frequently reported? I think you can pass that over to Alex again.
Thank you, Rukia, for handing me the question. One is that as we speak, as of about 2 months ago, we had around 25 reported cases of transfusion reactions, which mostly are anaphylactic and the rest, not really hemolytic. But I want to put it across again to most of us, like, these things are happening. It is a standard within the WHO standard that at least 1% of the total transfusions within every institution of the blood that we are transfusing we should be reporting transfusion reactions. How many of us are doing this? And how many of us, even if we are doing this, how many of these are being reported through the systems? We are in conjunction with KTTA trying to put up a system on immovigilance that will be able to capture this so that none, whether it is through the KTTA system or through the PPB portal, will be able to capture that. As for now, as for about 2 months ago, we had about only 25 that had reported. But then out of them, we didn't have all the reactions that we can cause alarming, which are actually hemolytic. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Alice, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. Like Alex has rightly put it, there is need for us to report on every transfusion reaction that occurs, and from the lab side, we do thorough investigation, not that we'll be reporting ourselves in investigation to come up with a root cause as to why those transfusion reactions occurred. Was it an issue with the unit, or was it an issue with the patient, or is it an issue with the process of either preparing the unit? And it is at that point now each and every transfusion reaction can be handled with, to ensure that we undertake corrective actions to ensure that there's no recurrence of such reactions. Thank you, and back to you, Dr.
Thank you for that. I just want to echo what both Alice, sorry.
Through the
Alex,
chair, maybe the other thing that I wanted to add is that at least for the stakeholders who are currently in this, in the, they call it the ecosystem of blood, we should be able to identify. The first thing is to really come down to our level and be able to identify which are these transfusion reactions that we are experiencing, and how do we classify them. Then we can be able now to monitor them within the system and appropriately report through the systems that have been made. I think it is imperative that all the stakeholders should be brought together into this understanding of what are these transfusion reactions? How can we identify them? How can we mitigate them? And how do we report them so that we can be able to have a whole chain that can be able to address the situations that are coming by in the system? Thank you, Dr. Rukia.
Thank you, Mr. Mutahi. I wanted to just echo what both Alice and Alex have said. We want to encourage reporting in terms of hemovigilance, the adverse reaction forms we need to be sending in. We want to have a non-punitive approach, more of a corrective approach. If we're able to see how many reactions are happening in facility X, we'll be able to come down maybe and see where the problem was, where was the break in the quality chain, and then maybe put implementation strategies to avoid that in future. Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. Irene, do you want to add anything before we go on?
Yeah, just to say that the facilities should not fear to report because as Alex has said, they are not meant to be punitive, but they are going to strengthen our systems. Thank you.
Okay, let's continue. In the interest of time, we continue with the questions. What's the situation on our blood banks? Because most of the time we have patients, we are asked to donate as family members. I think I'll give this to Irene to answer.
At the moment, our blood banks are stable. Unfortunately, we have been relying so much with the school-going children. And when they go for AFTRAM, we are shaken a little bit, but I can say we are stable. The number of appeals you are seeing is because there is an increase, or rather the increase of diseases that are challenging, like cancer now. You find that a cancer patient needs more than 3 or 4 units. And so this gives us, brings a toll to the blood banks. Others, the blood banks are stable, but it's only that we are having a lot of requests due to the patient increased awareness of transfusion and the diseases that are competing for blood. So that we have seen the trend is going high. I believe also, I think the counties are doing well with the diagnostic issues so that patients are getting their diagnosis on time and surgeries are also going up. So we should not be worried about the emerging online appeals. What we need to do as KTTA is to ensure that we meet the target that we've set, because the target that we are handling at the moment is as per the World Health Organization. And I believe this is going to ensure that the country is stable. So the blood banks are stable at the moment.
Okay, to add on to that, we need to move on to the approach of WHO, where we go into voluntary-based blood donation rather than family replacement. So in this aspect, we're encouraging Anderson, the one who's asked the question, and everyone who's listening, to have a habit of donating blood and not to wait in the event that your family member needs the blood. Thank you so much. Let's continue to the next one. This is by Peter. My question is on the QC section of the presentation. How is HB measured, for example, in packed red cells? Over to you, Alice.
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. In our practice, we are just using the hematology analyzers to check for the HB for the packed red cells, and most of our red cells have got an additive solution, so we'll just check for the HB like we do under normal circumstances. And I'm not sure if I understand the question of how we measure. Once the red cells are prepared, we do what we call aliquots on the pilot tubing, and those are the tubings that we obtain the sample from, and you put into appropriate container, and then you do your HB check. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice, for that. I think it's well explained. Moving on to the next one. Supposing a patient is transfused with expired blood unknowingly, what would happen to that patient? Okay, Alex.
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. This is a question that I would call it a supposition, because by the time a unit is getting out of maybe a blood establishment, all the quality management system procedures should have been adhered to and looked through. So to have a unit that is expired, it means, one, you have a logistical issue within the facility that is not able to identify which are the products that are on for use, one, which are the products that are on queue, and three, which are the products that have expired. I think we should be able to insist that a procedure manual should be prepared such that in effect, we have such a unit that has expired. Actually, every time with the logistics system that will be put in place, it is able to monitor the units that are in use, that units that are coming in, and the units that have expired. To me, to have a unit that is that has expired being transfused is nearing an unimaginable situation that I would think no establishment, no facility should be able to report such. Dr. Rukia, over to you.
And this is something which will help us if we are reporting the adverse reactions. We may find out if we go back, was it expired blood that was given that could be possibly giving us these reactions? Because unfortunately, it's quite unethical to conduct such a study. And I would agree with Alex. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to the next one. Do you normally conduct apheresis method of blood transfusion? To Irene?
Yes, we do. We have apheresis machines in the country at the moment. And yes, there is a big challenge of exposing our donors to apheresis machines. The setup of apheresis is like somebody who is going through dialysis, and whenever you explain, or when the other donors see apheresis donation going on, there is that fear. So I can say, yes, we are doing it, but we have the challenge of sensitization. We are still sensitizing our donors to move from the regular donation to apheresis donations because of that challenge of fear. They still have that fear also, yeah.
Okay, and just to the one who asked the question, I can see it's anonymous. It's apheretic method of blood, it's donation rather than transfusion.
Yes, Dr. Rukia, yes, we are doing apheresis donations, and we have apheresis machines. We have one in Nakuru, we have one in Eldoret, Nairobi, and in Kisumu. So those apheresis machines currently are situated at the regional blood transfusion centers, and those who are willing to donate can walk in and do the apheresis donations. Yes, so yes, we do.
Thank you for that, Irene. Maybe to Alice, maybe you can make a comment on the quality of platelets that we get from apheresis and the one from separation.
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. If we get one apheretic platelet donation, that is sufficient dose to serve, or rather to help one donor get a full adult dose. If we do platelet collection from single donation, we call them the random. We have several donors coming to donate the usual donation. Then you need around 5 to 6 donors to be able to get one dose for one patient. That makes the whole difference. And you know, sometimes these platelets, like we saw on their shelf life, is only 3 to 5 days. So it is not something that you can prepare and have it in plenty waiting for the patient. So usually there are a lot of challenges when you told that you have a patient that, or even when we are told that there's a hospital that has a patient who requires a platelet transfusion, you will have to look for 5 donors, or you'll have to give a whole 5 platelets to go to one donor, as opposed to when you get one donor who is ready to go through the apheretic donation, you're able to serve that donor for that particular period. That it may not be the last time the patient is receiving transfusion, especially the cases of oncology may need to go through the transfusion time and again. Thank you. Back to you, Dr. Rukia.
Thank you, Alice.
Rukia? Dr. Rukia?
Yes, please. The floor is yours.
Further two, the apheretic platelets are the best, especially when you're dealing with maybe massive transfusions where you realize that in apheretic platelets, there will be no at all plasma that is used to suspend the platelets. So again, the quality of the platelets in apheresis process is much better than the one that we do from the pooled platelets from different donors. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Rukia.
Thank you, Alex, for that addition. The next question is, what is the best way of warming the blood before transfusing to the patient? Irene, you can take over this one.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Blood warming has been really discouraged. We do not encourage blood warming because the time the blood is required to be transfused is enough for the warm agglutinins in the body to pick up those antibodies and ensure that there is no reaction. But should a doctor need blood to be warmed, then we have, I think, blood warmers that are supposed to be in these big referral hospitals like KNH, because we have patients who might require, let's say, 7 units within a short period of time. Those ones are the only ones that the guidelines have accepted. They should receive warmed blood. Otherwise, for the normal donations or transfusions, we do not really encourage blood to be warmed. There's no reason blood should be warmed, except the ones that we have indicated in our guidelines. And I have not seen any hospital in the region where I work having blood warmers. So if they are supposed to warm, there's even a challenge of how to warm the blood. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think that one is clearly explained. Over to Alice. What happens when too much blood is collected in a bag? I witnessed one where my son was donating. The nurse was a bit busy and the blood was collecting very quickly. HB was 18.
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. Like I had previously said during the presentation, is that the anticoagulant that is in a blood bag is sufficient to support the red cells up to a particular period of time. Should we collect higher than the recommended amount by the manufacturer, then we run the risk of, quote unquote, the cells finishing their nutrients before the storage time. That is the glucose, the adenine, and all that. And therefore, at the remaining number of days, the 35 days, the cells will have no nutrients to thrive on, and therefore they'll start dying. And death here, I mean hemolysis. And therefore, if that blood is transfused to, a recipient, they may not benefit from that transfusion. The other issue, maybe we are in future we'll have a session for donor management. It is always a requirement that you ensure that you monitor the donor throughout the donation process too. And by the time you do the prick, there's initial observation just to make sure that the donor is not reacting. That's time enough to tell you that this donor is likely to fill this bag within 5 or 8 minutes, and therefore be on the standby to ensure that you've not collected the excess blood. And I'm sure and hopefully nothing happened to that donor for having filled the bag with probably 600 ml as opposed to donating between 450 and 500. Thank you. Back to you, Dr.
And thank you, Alice, for that. The next question goes to Mr. Mutahi. Do you investigate transfusion reactions? If yes, who does it and using what tools?
Thank you, Chair. One is, yes, transfusion reactions are investigated, and they should be investigated. It is the high time that we as a profession, we as the medics, should be able at least to go down below. And whenever there's a transfusion reaction that has happened or occurred within a facility, the facility should be able to pick it up and report. The reason why we are saying that is improving the system means we must investigate and look at how we are going to mitigate those. Maybe through the investigation, we'll come out with a result which will show where the mistake occurred or what was the reaction exactly, and the rest of the things that will come by. A hemovigilance, an intact hemovigilance system, which is again put down in the hemovigilance manual that KTTA has done, and also as per the standards for AFSBT and ISBT, should be able to guide us into how to handle these situations and report. These reports also should be able to give us an insight on, what are the measures that we are supposed to take in a system to ensure that these transfusion reactions do not occur again. What is this that we need to put in the system that will mitigate maybe, like you had said before, an expired unit that was transfused? I think with a hemovigilance system that we are trying now to propagate and to do within the country, this will assist very much in the reporting of these transfusion reactions. How the system itself, who do you report to? How often should you do it? And what are the parameters? How should we investigate it, etc., should be within the same system of the reporting of these transfusion reactions. I think Alice and the rest can be able to add if there is anything that I've left out. Thank you.
Over to you, Alice.
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. Thank you, Alex. I don't think that I need to add anything on top of what Alex has said, but let's just watch this space. Very soon we'll have a better working system that is going to help us be able to investigate any transfusion reactions, any near misses, and we put the appropriate we take the appropriate steps to ensure that they are at a minimal. And even as we strengthen our hemovigilance, these are some of the discussions that are going to be shared, and on what investigations we need to undertake, who needs to do it, because there comes a time when if I am the one who is in the lab and have issued a unit that was incompatible, it might be a bit of a problem for me to undertake investigation. So all those measures are going to be put in place, and to be glad to share either in this forum or otherwise to ensure that no one misses or no one is left behind as far as such investigations are concerned. Back to you, Dr. Rukia.
Thank you. Irene, do you have anything to add on that?
Yes, maybe I can say that without hospital transfusion committees, then it's going to be very difficult for us to know if there were any reactions in any particular hospital. So we are really encouraging our hospitals, transfusing hospitals, to have the hospital transfusion committees. From there, they will have an hemovigilance officer who will be told what to be doing, the role of a hemovigilance officer. And this is the particular person, as Alex has said, who will bring forth the reactions. Otherwise, it's very difficult for a nurse to just come out of the ward and just say, today I had a transfusion reaction. They will just look at it as a business as usual, and they will not have anywhere to take their reports. So we are really encouraging these HTCs to be formed, the facility transfusion committees to be formed, and this is the basis of all the investigations that are going to take place in our hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. I think you've hit the nail on the head. We need the hospital transfusion committees to be set up. We need hemovigilance officers. We need to encourage reporting, which is more of corrective rather than punitive. That's the only way we'll be able to record with the available tools, which is the hemovigilance monthly reporting tool and the adverse reaction form. Thank you so much for that question. The next question is, what is the cutoff age for a donor in Kenya? I have witnessed a donor at age 50 turned down. The cutoff is at 65, and the donor that you witnessed could have been other reasons for donor referral. I will pose the question again to Irene for further information.
Yes, in Kenya, the cutoff is 65, as you have said. But also, if a donor is 66 years and wants to donate, then we are asking him or her to come with a letter from their doctor showing that they are eligible to be donors. Actually, we do not take them. So the cutoff is 65 years. Those who are 50 and they were turned down, remember our questionnaire has more than 23 questions. So chances are high they did not meet the criteria that we had set, not necessarily because of age. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question is, what are the requirements for a facility to collect and test blood for transfusion? And how do you ensure quality control? I think this question I want to pose to Mr. Alex first and then to Alice.
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. What are requirements for a facility to collect and test blood for transfusion? And how do you ensure quality? One is that any facility that is going to be collecting blood I want to put that word, must first of all be acceptable through the KTTA system, that you qualify to be able to collect blood and to test blood. Facilities will be classified as per the function that they are going to do. We have a manual for blood establishments, and in that manual, it clearly brings out the different classes of each and every establishment that is in the system and what is required, the functions of them, who is supposed to be there, and also the size of the facilities and all the equipments, including the personnel that are supposed to be there. So as soon as one has qualified and we have an agreeable result of that, then that facility is able to do that collection and the activities thereof as per the class. Quality control, how do quality control come in? It will come in through the entire process, because as you give a function to a facility, every part of that activity that is being done within that facility has got a quality control measure for the functions that are being done. For example, if you're supposed to collect blood alone and just collect alone, then the quality control measures for that facility will be made according to that function. If you're supposed to collect and then process and maybe make a what you call packed red cells, the quality control system for that again will be very different from the first one, etc., etc. Thereby, we have classified facilities as per the function, and through the blood establishment manual, you'll be able to see the sizes, the personnel you require, the equipments that you will require, what is your scope of activity, and the rest of the things, a QMS system that you need to establish, which is standard to every part of the establishment. I think with this, we should, all of us, KTTA and PPB, should be able to, cohabit and work together in ensuring that these blood establishments really bring out the products that are of right quality, the right efficacy, so that we don't have any products that are in the field that are being utilized in our facilities that are not meeting the quality thereof as defined. Thank you, Chair. If there is anyone to add, I think they will be free to add over to that. Over to the Chair.
Thank you so much, Alex. I think you've answered it wonderfully. To Alice, do you have anything to add?
None, except to urge the teams, even as we pursue collection, we ensure that we encourage voluntary donations as opposed to calling upon relatives to donate only when their kin is in need. Thank you, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Alice. The next one is by Martin. A friend told me he keeps his blood pressure down by donating blood frequently. Is it true? I think I'll answer that one. No, it's not true. Remember, blood pressure is usually the cardiac output times systemic vascular resistance. And our cardiac output is usually due to our heart rate and stroke volume. And also remember the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. So there is not really a correlation between donating frequently and lowering your blood pressure. People who donate frequently, maybe they have polycythemia, it can reduce their symptoms when they donate frequently. Thank you. Unless anyone has anything to add, Alice or Alex and Irene?
Doc, you've answered it quite okay. Thank you.
Sawa. Moving on, do medics qualify as donors, or is their blood considered high risk? Okay, who wants to take this one, Irene?
Yeah, thank you, Daktari. Yeah, medics are considered as donors. Most of the medics have received the hepatitis B vaccine for you to work in the hospitals in Kenya. So we take them as donors, and we are happy for those who always come and donate. Most of the medics shy away, but we have those doctors and the nurses and the lab, all the practitioners. We have those who work in, and they form part of the database of our blood banks. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. It's quite interesting how medics will be high risk, unless considering hepatitis B, which Irene has addressed. Moving on to the next one. Which age group is acceptable for donating blood? Are elderly eligible? Irene, you can take that question.
16 to 65 years are all acceptable to donate, but from our statistics, we are overburdening the children who are 16 to 25 years. We want to target those who are 25 to 65. And I believe all of us who are on this platform today are in that age group. So we are supposed to come out of our offices, come out of our workplaces and donate blood so that we can change the shift of the KTTA blood banks overburdening the young children who are in school and colleges. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. I think in the interest of time, we'll move to the next one quickly. Is it okay to transfuse blood and blood products using fluid or infusion pumps? Irene again.
Repeat the question, Dr.
Is it okay to transfuse blood and blood products using fluid or infusion pumps?
Okay, I think it is okay to use the fluids rather than the infusion pumps. That is, I think that's what you are recommending.
Alice, do you have anything to add there?
May I add?
No, I don't, Dr. Rukia.
Yes, Alex.
Yeah, I want to bring a clarification here because this person is asking of two separate entities. When you say, is it okay to transfuse blood and blood products? When you talk about blood products, already these are what we call plasma-derived medicinal products, and therefore these are infused as per the prescriptions that are made. However, for blood, I have seen several times blood being infused using with the fluids, but then infusions pumps, I think that I may not be in a position to answer well. Nonetheless, it is supposed to be handled as per the guidelines that have been made within every country, within every location. Thank you very much. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you so much. It's not routine practice to use infusion pumps. In fact, we have some studies ongoing on that. It has been shown that infusion pumps can be harmful to erythrocytes.
Yes.
So it's safe to just give with the giving set, the blood giving set.
Yes. Hence the reason I have said it is supposed to be done within the guidelines that are done within every country, and then referred to scientific studies that have been done.
Excellent. Thank you so much. The next question is, just in case it's expired unit, what happens to the patient? I think we have addressed that. Next one, can a person who has tattooed his or her body be able to donate blood? Yes, they can donate blood, but they're usually deferred for a certain period of time. I think about 6 months. I stand to be guided. Irene, do you have anything to add there?
Yes, Dr. The issue of tattoos has really brought a lot of controversies during donations, and our guidelines is that if the tattoo entailed the piercing, the one which you pierce the skin, then we defer for 6 months. But if the tattoo was a floral, the one it is just drawn by henna, then there is no need to defer that patient because there was no contamination that is being suspected. So the donors are urged to be very sincere at this point. If they are floral, they continue to donate. If they are pierced, then we give them a deferral of 6 months. Thank you.
Dr. Rukia.
Sorry, I had some technical issues. My phone just died and I was hotspotting. Let's continue. Unfortunately, I'm not able to. Sorry, Alex.
Can I have an input?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think just like Irene has said, I want to add this fact that for us to ensure quality of blood and blood products that we have, it will not just be enough to start our quality management systems from collection. Our quality management system begins at identifying the donor, because it's from the donor, if we get the right donor during donor identification, where the pool of the donors are identified, then we are more certain of having a quality product at the end of it. Because when they go through the checklists, when they go through the questionnaires and all the ticks are done, and we have identified them like this is a safe pool, then we are more certain that the product that we will have is intact. So I think to ensure that the tattoo and the rest are being covered, these things have been covered in the questionnaire so that it's identified, so that you minimize the risk of the donor, so that as you continue to donate the blood that you're donating now, the end product is more. We are able to look at the product, it will be safe, or the product may not be safe. Thank you very much, Dr. Rukia. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I think we have maybe less than 10 minutes. To Alice, this question, before blood collection, what quality measures are put in place to ensure donors are safe?
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. Like Alex said, quality begins at the point when we are doing donor mobilization, because you need to target low-risk donors and therefore minimize chances of bleeding donors. who, for one reason or the other, their blood may not be used. Then when it comes to the actual donor screening, to ensure that you keep your donor safe, you keep yourself safe, and you keep the intended recipient safe, there are several checks that a donor is subjected to. One is checking to ensure that their HB is at least 12 milligrams per deciliter and above. We also ensure that we get the weight right. You have to be 50 kilograms and above. The age limit, again, has to be within the acceptable, like Irene said. And then we have the issue of the blood pressure. It has to be within the normal limit. Besides that, there's a questionnaire, that a series of questions that can help you and help the person talking to make a determination on whether you are a safe donor, whether by donating you are going to pose a risk to yourself, or by donating that blood, if it's transfused, might pose a risk to a patient. And in doing all that, you have the opportunity even to do what we call self-deferral, going through the questionnaire. You may come across a question that actually tells you, look here, you are not safe to donate, and then you opt out, or you are deferred for a certain period of time. Then after that, during the collection process, and actually to take care of the issue of blood clotting, once the blood starts flowing into the bag, you're required to ensure that you mix it at regular intervals to ensure that there's a consistency in mixing the blood with the coagulant. If you are not using a blood mixer during the collection, which would others do the mixing for you. And again, after that, the storage requirements of the blood based on the intended end component is also a quality control or quality assurance measure to ensure that your end product meets all the safety requirements. And I think I went through how you're supposed to store a unit that is meant for preparation of platelets, how long it's supposed to be stored, and even during the preparation process. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Alice, for that clarification. Moving on to the next one. It is said people are okay with different HB levels at different altitudes. Does this issue have an effect on donated blood from a donor? It may have an effect if the HB was borderline. Otherwise, it should not have any effect. Okay, next question. Is there anything like maybe in a process the recipient received more blood? Should he or she also donate to others? This is quite unlikely because the recipient will receive only the blood that he or she needs. He or she may also donate if she's of good health and her HB requirements are okay. That is after she has recovered, of course. Moving quickly to the others. Can a person on family planning combined pills donate blood? Yes, unless there are other contraindications, such as at risk for the strokes and the likes. Okay, transfusing blood more than 4 hours, is it still effective? I want to pass this over to Irene and also the plenary.
Yeah, in our guidelines, within 4 hours is acceptable for transfusion. And we have not we do not want the blood to be transfused more than 4 hours for the reasons of bacterial contamination. Remember, the blood is now out of the refrigeration temperatures, which is required to be 2 to 6. And we have hung it at room temperature, that is 20 to 24. And some places are even warmer. They go up to 30 degrees at room temperature. So the moment you go more than 4 hours, then we are now endangering the unit, because we have bacteria that could have entered the blood bag during collection, and we do not want it to multiply. So within 4 hours is okay. And whenever we relax our guidelines, we will always keep the hospitals informed. So 4 hours.
Thank you, Irene. In the interest of time, let's go quickly to the other question. How does KTTA ensure compliance with ISO 15189? Moving to Alice.
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. We ensure compliance by ensuring that we are implementing the requirements of the ISO 15189. And this far, we've had 5 out of the 6 regional testing laboratories accredited to ISO 15189. And again, going forward with the revised edition of ISO 15189, we shall be extending to the collection sites just to ensure that they're also in compliance during the entire collection process. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you for that. Would adding a QR code or barcode on the blood bag help enhance reporting of transfusion reactions? Over to you, Alice, again.
This is a good and a welcome proposal. We maybe in a different forum, we may have done a presentation on our DAMK system that will help us to track and trace all the blood. So as a way of improving this, an input that is welcome to see whether in our labels we can have that QR code at the side, especially on the good label, the final label of that product, so that in case of a transfusion reaction, that then can help in reporting. And thanks for that input. We'll put it into consideration. Back to you, Dr. Rukia.
Okay, thank you so much, Alice. The next question, how do you guarantee safety of blood in donors who are newly infected with HIV, but within the window period, and hence are screened negative at least in the first 3 weeks, given that donated blood expires in 21 days and must be transfused within the expiry dates and also within the window period of HIV? This is quite a good question. So what we do, we usually screen, I think you meant safety of blood in the recipients. So we usually screen for HIV, but it's usually with ELISA. So in the window period, we may actually miss and get false negatives, but here we hope to compensate from our donor questionnaire where we screen for behavioral, risky behavior, and also maybe hepatitis B. Yeah. I don't know if Alex can help answering this question, but we need to maybe move on to PCR, things which will probably capture the window period of HIV.
Thank you,
Alex.
Thank you, Dr. Rukia. I will echo your sentiments and further add this, that even for the testing that we are currently encouraging within the system, is the testing should be done using a 4th generation testing kits. That's number 1. Number 2 is also the proposal to include an elaborate system to monitor our recipients even after donation, so that we can identify post transfusion infections. This will actually inform on the severity and the quality of the products that we have given out into the system. Nonetheless, an elaborate one, identifying the donor pool that we are going to have. Number 2, by doing a critical document on screening processes, the questionnaire that will be able also to bring us down to that. And number 4, having a very intact screening procedure that has no interferences. With these 3, this actually risk of transfusion transmissible infections into a donor will be minimized. But again, a study should be done within this country, and for that we'll do a post-transfusion check for the units that have exited and been transfused to patients, so that at least we can have a feel of, was our quality right? Have we been doing the things that we are doing right? Because if we do the things right, then we will minimally have a post-transfusion infection of our recipients. Thank you, Dr. Kuro.
Thank you. Next question. I have seen diabetics stand away as donors. Is there an issue or is there a risk? So for diabetics, if people with type 2 or at or at good health and they are still type 2, they are eligible for donation. The ones who we don't encourage to donate or it's not recommended is the ones who have type 1 diabetes or have type 2 and are on insulin. Thank you. Irene, do you want to add on that?
No, not at all. You have answered correctly.
Okay, thank you so much. I think the issue of tattoo, someone is asking, we have answered. Are there countries in the world where blood can be collected for commercial purposes? Yes, there are, but Kenya is not one of them. Okay. There are people with over 18 grams per deciliter, 18 grams per liter HB who are advised to donate. Are blood from such donors safe for transfusion? It depends if this person has polycythemia. Generally, we usually say that over 18 grams, they probably have polycythemia vera and they are not safe for transfusion. Their blood is not safe. How many units of blood can be transfused in 24 hours? Over to you, Irene.
We leave the number of units to be transfused over 24 hours to the doctor who is managing the patient, because it depends on what he really or she wants to achieve by the end of the transfusion. So ours is just to give guidelines as stated here that yes, you can do massive transfusion over 24 hours. You can do as much as 10 units. And we have given those guidelines. Each facility or each hospital is supposed to develop their own protocols on massive transfusions, but we do not have control over how many units to be transfused. It depends on the doctor managing the patient. Allow me also to go back on the issue of HB of over 18. We are receiving donors with HB of over 18 that have been told to come and donate blood. We always return them back to the doctors for reasons that our guidelines do not allow us to bleed donors who have HBs of more than 18. So whenever we return them back to the doctors, we are expecting a clinician to take over the case, to bleed the donor. We are always available to assist with 1 or 2 blood bags, so long as the doctor has asked in a written form that they require the blood bag for that therapeutic phlebotomy, and the doctor is supposed to monitor the patient at that point, because most of the time their blood pressure is high. So this is a case that we are having a lot of challenges. The donors are coming back to us, we are sending them back to the doctors are sending them back to us. I believe we have clinicians here kindly manage the patients or the donors who have HBs of more than 18. We do not have that, the guideline allowing us to bleed those donors. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much for that, Irene, for that wonderful addition. I think we can give, since we only have like, I think we have only like 2 minutes left. We can give Alex to say something.
Yeah, participants and the panelists, I want to thank each one of you for having time to listen to us. We look forward for an intensive system that we will be able to cooperate between the regulatory system and the service, so that we can ensure that whatever activities that we are going to do for the patients that we have and the clients that we serve is a way of giving them quality products that are safe, that we can be able to stand by and justify that it was rightly done. And therefore, I want to call upon all of us to really hold our hands together and join in ensuring that the products that we are going to have, which is the blood, and even that we are going to give to the clients, is safe, and therefore ensure sustainability of life for the donors that we come across. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in another fora. And over to you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Irene, you can give us a few words.
Yeah, I want to thank KNH for organizing this webinar in collaboration with the KTTA. Because I believe we have reached more clinicians and practitioners on the safe practices that are required to be followed as a country. To everybody who has been able to zoom in and listen to us, thank you so much. To the speaker and the moderator, and you, Dr. Rukia, I want to say asante sana. God bless.
Thank you so much. And to our one and only Alice.
Special thanks to everybody who has taken their time to joining and have a listen. And our wish is to be able to live in such a time when we'll have blood seated either in the fridge or on the bedside waiting for a patient, as opposed to having a patient sit in the hospital for 3 to 4 days waiting for the blood. And how do we do that? Having every eligible male donor donate every 3 months, which makes it 4 times a year, and every eligible female donor donate thrice a year, that is every 4 months. Thank you very much, and looking forward for another interaction with all of you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, our panelists and our participants. This would not have been possible without you. Thank you so much for a very interactive session. Unfortunately, we may not be able to answer all the questions, but we look forward to interacting more in the future. Thank you once again. Over to you, Nelson. Okay, I think Nelson is not with us at the moment. So yeah, feel free to say goodbye and yeah, have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everyone.